All right, let's talk about the Western Conference. Well,
Yeah, so one of the things that I had been floating around, and even I think Matt brought up when he was on our show, is just that the West isn't as dominant as
yeah.
previous years. I mean, and the East has some
Well,
teams that
as
are
last year.
sure. I still think they were pretty good the year the Nuggets won the title, even though they
There
were
were a lot of injuries.
record wise. I always
Yeah.
chalked up the record just being because it was such a competitive league, and maybe that's still true. But and it could be that just with the CBA and these teams being able to do less, like it's harder to build like a juggernaut team. So and the league wants this. They want more parity. They want more balanced, competitive landscape. So now we have this West
Now everybody's
where
mid.
yeah, everyone's mid. The Thunder are undefeated, and we knew that they were the new golden child of every NBA mind. They love the Thunder.
Apparently not yours. Goodness.
No, I don't like the Thunder at all. But uh yeah, they look really good. They're probably going to be the one seed. I'd be like surprised if they weren't at this point. So then you get to the rest of the teams and you got like the Suns and the Mavs, you've got the Nuggets, you got the Wolves. The Suns and the Lakers are teams where I don't think they were thought of as like a top 4 seed team, really, obviously, and they are right now. It's early, but they look like probably playoff teams. But we'll see. The Mavs went to the finals; they're going to be good. The Wolves and the Nuggets are 3-3. So the West just looks less clearly defined as I'm used to, and the East, while the Bucks are definitely on the struggle bus, we got the Cavs. Orlando was looking really good, and Paulo has the torn oblique, so he's out. So that really sucks. The Knicks brought in Cat, so that was gonna give them a boost. So I had thought, is the East kind of catching up to the West more than usual? And where you stand kind of comparing these teams. Do you even think the East is getting closer to the West, or do you think there's still a big gap?
I mean, there's still a big gap,
Okay.
to be honest. I think that you are onto something in the West, though, in that, yeah, there's been like a pretty good start for the Suns, a pretty good start for the Lakers, a pretty hot start for the Warriors, all
Yeah.
those Pacific Division teams before they all start scrapping it out against each other. But besides maybe OKC, who everyone already thought was going to be amazing, I don't think there's anybody in the West that has really like exceeded my expectation for how
Yeah.
they'd play in the like maybe the Warriors, but they've like beat up on easy teams for the most part. And without Steph, which is a big deal because they are often terrible without Steph.
But like
Like
Buddy
to the point
Hields
where they
looked
could
really
lose these
good.
games. Buddy Hield has looked really good. As I expected Buddy Hield to look really good in Steve Kerr's offense. He's
Okay.
just
Yeah.
like, I'm the new Clay. Um, but yeah, nobody has really exceeded things. I think the Grizzlies, like they're sitting pretty well right now. They're 4-3, so they're above 500, all of that. But you've seen their limitations. They've also had some, injury issues. The Mavericks, I really expect I like the Mavericks have been playing below what I thought they'd be.
Hmm.
And I didn't think they'd be playing like a 1 seed, but I thought they'd be playing closer to like a clear number 2,
Yeah.
especially like with the Nuggets struggling as much as they have. But they've only like they're the Nuggets are 3-3 and the Mavs are 3-2. They lost that game to the Rockets. They almost got blown out in that game, but then they were able to make it close and the Rockets were able to hold on at the end. Like,
Yeah.
just like little stuff, things like that. Like the top of the West doesn't look as dominant as it did last year. It actually kind of reminds me of what the West looked like the year that the Nuggets won the title, honestly.
Yeah. It's hard to know who was going to go to the Western Conference Finals, like against the Nuggets. Ended up being the Lakers. They made that deadline trade, and I didn't expect them to get there, but they
And they
did.
got a bunch of injury luck in the playoffs too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that the East is catching up. And the reason I say that is despite the Cavs in particular well exceeding my expectation for how they'd start the season, we'll see how that, goes along, but they've been crushing teams. They had that game that went off a clutch bucket from Donovan Mitchell versus the Bucks yesterday. It was heartbreaker for the Bucks because they are
They
down
need
so
something.
bad right now. The Bucks are struggling. Like they don't look like a team that's going to finish top 4 right now. I think they've only got one win. The Bucks are currently sitting at 1-5. They have the worst record in the East at the moment.
That is
Even
crazy.
is that right? That means the Wizards have 2 wins right now. And I'm sure that they have the talent to dig themselves out of this, but they're missing Chris Middleton to start the season, and their defense is not looking good, like, at all.
Nope.
So I'm like, okay, what does the top of the East look like? If anything, I think the Knicks I thought would struggle a little bit more out of the gate, especially after we saw them on opening night. But they're
They're
okay right now. They're
stabilizing
three
a
and
bit.
two. They're starting to stabilize. And offensive rating, you can't read too much into it this early in the season, but their offense has looked really good. They're currently sitting at second in offensive rating. We'll see how that holds up over the next 10 games or so. But besides, again, the Cavs and then the Knicks starting to stabilize, Boston being like what it is, basically OKC East, uh, I'm not terribly impressed with a bunch of these other teams. The Magic started off the season really strong. Obviously, Paolo is injured with the abdominal injury, and that sucks.
Yeah, he was
I am
amazing to start the season.
amazing, right?
Yeah.
And the Magic were taking care of business. They were defending well, all this stuff. They had that Bulls game that it was going to be a blowout, and then they let the Bulls back in, and then the Bulls were able to pull it out in the clutch. That's annoying.
Hmm.
Because that was a recurring issue with this Orlando Magic team last season, where they would build these like humongous leads and then let teams back in. Happened in Game 7 versus the Cavs. And doesn't this sound familiar? The Nuggets did this too, but a lot less frequently, right? And they're a team that you expect to have an offense that doesn't sputter quite as much as the Orlando Magic's does. So you don't want to create that habit. So I'm worried about the Magic as well. The Pacers,
Had an overtime win against the Celtics.
they're 2-4 right now. They did have an overtime win against the Celtics. They also had another win against a clutch win against the Pistons, who are 2-5.
They just are like the Nuggets. They make every game a close game.
They're not looking to the thing with the Pacers is their offense. Like that's my thing, is that the East has been more underwhelming than the West on the whole.
Yeah.
Even though there's like one team really in the Cavs that has like well
Really risen
overperformed
above.
expectation. We don't have a team like that in the West. OKC has looked really good, but they're more like Boston, where you expected them to look this good. OKC's defense has been impressive to me, but
Yeah.
the offense is like what you'd expect from the Thunder. They actually started off pretty slow, but Shea is starting to find his groove and all of that. I'm curious to see what that's going to look like when Isaiah Hartenstein comes back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say that the West is still better than the East because I'm a hater, and also because of facts and logic.
Yeah, I know. I made a tweet kind of hinting at this idea. I'm like a West stan, like I want the West to be better than the East, despite the fact that the Nuggets play in the West. I don't know why I'm wishing for my conference to be harder, but whatever. I guess I'm just a proud Western person. And I was like breaking down, I was like listing how many teams are in the top versus like the middle to the bottom. Obviously, the East had way more teams at the bottom, which I was expecting, but I thought maybe more the top and mid tier was like almost evening out. But it's just hard to know because like the Nets have been sneaky good, my least favorite term, but they've been like more competitive than I've thought. Same with the Bulls. Like I thought they'd like maybe not even win a game. The Hornets are looking good. LaMelo's back, like looking like he's taken a leap. But they
Mm,
just played a back to back against the Celtics and they lost them both, so they're 2-4. But like if they
they
didn't
made
have
that
that,
first one a game.
yeah, they did. So I think their record would be better if they didn't have this that slate. But so I was like, if the middle's evening out in the East, it may be like approaching more of that quality in the West, but it is the bar's lower if you're like technically overachieving in the East, right? So it's like, oh yeah, you beat the Pistons
Yeah.
or whatever the hell. So it's like it is hard to evaluate
Beating the
an East
Pistons and
team.
still being 2-4 though, like, except when they're underperforming, you can go in on them because you're like, bro,
Then
you're in the Eastern Conference. Like, what are you
you have to
doing?
step it up.
But it's a weird game, but like I just did this with the Mavs and the Rockets, and the Rockets are a team that I think that is going to be better than they were last year. I don't know how much better, but they were already pretty solid. They were a 500 team last year, and they went in and almost blew out the Mavs, and then were able to like gut check time in the clutch versus Luca, who was going off and like hold on and win that game. So that's a pretty big deal too. They Here's another thing about the Rockets. I just want to point this out. They played the Warriors last night, and I didn't get to watch this game because I was watching the Nuggets Jazz game. But the Warriors were up like 30 at half. The
Yeah.
Rockets came back and tied this game in the fourth quarter. This game went to overtime. The Warriors were able to pull it
Oh,
off, but that is insane.
I actually didn't know that. I saw the 30-point
Yeah.
score and totally
They
wrote
came
that
back,
game off.
tied it, and like forced overtime. And
That's
I thought, oh my God, the
crazy.
Warriors are having these issues again. And again, they're without Steph.
Yeah.
So
That's what was
um
concerning to me. I was like, are the Rockets really getting this blown out by a non-Steph
it
Warriors?
makes
That's
it almost made me look back at the Warriors wins against the Pelicans, be like, maybe I was being too harsh on the Pelicans, but actually no, like these Warriors are beatable. They did win this game. So this is like, it was impressive, honestly, from both teams. For the Rockets
hmm
to force overtime from a 30-point deficit, and for the Warriors without Steph to hold on and like win a
win
game
the
that's like,
game.
wow, a total freaking collapse. And I think they were on the road as well. Yeah.
It's just a fun part of the season
Yeah.
where you don't know necessarily
Yeah.
where these teams are. I think even it reminds me of the Nuggets where you're thinking we're going to smoke the Nets and the Raptors,
Dennis
and the
Schroeder, because
Clippers.
no one can stay in front of Dennis Schroeder.
And we thought the Clippers, I thought they were going to be terrible without Kawhi. And,
I did
they lost
not.
PG.
I did not think they'd be terrible.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
pointing that
You
out.
were making some arguments for them in our like random tiers that we had been doing. Um, and I had them lower for sure. But they are not horrible. So they actually put up a good fight. I mean, Powell was on fire. So, I mean, they have good players. It's just
Yeah.
they just never were able to make the Kawhi PG whole thing fit. And then you have the injuries. So, how far are they going to go?
I do have a
But,
bone to pick with Norm Powell, though. He can
okay.
only hit clutch shots against us. Instead, he bricks everything against the Suns.
Whoa. Does he
I
hit
don't know if
clutch
it's just
shots
against us,
against?
but I know
Okay.
he wasn't hitting anything like wide open shots against the Suns. And
I'm
I'm
going to
like,
have to
bro,
follow Powell's shooting against other teams because I'm going to start doing that with Jaden
he's a good shooter.
McDaniels.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, dude, we didn't talk about this. Jaden McDaniels got played off the floor in that game versus the Wolves, which I think is part of the reason that MPJ went off in that game, to be completely honest, because the Wolves started off with their playoff matchups. They had Ant on Jabal and Jaden on MPJ. But then Jaden like wasn't good on offense at all. And so they took him
Well, he
off the
hit
floor.
two early. Wait, didn't he hit two early threes?
Jaden did.
Yeah.
I remember
And
he like drove and like he did something, but he was like a minus 20 something in
yeah,
that
he
game.
was. Yeah, really big. But at the start of the game, he hit two threes, and I was like, God damn it. He always hits these threes against us, but he's not known as a 3-point shooter,
Well,
really.
he's known as a spot up shooter. He shot over
Yeah.
40% and he hits his wide open looks. So I'm never going to assume. That's the thing. Like everyone makes this mistake about the Wolves offense, even last year. We talked about their 3-point rate went up, but like from last year to this year. But they had a good effective field goal percentage. Their guys hit the shots that they get. The problem is their playmaking and turning the ball over so much that they don't have enough shots taken and made. But they're very efficient on the ones that they get. Is
Yeah.
those guys get easy shots for the most part when they get them.
Well, I hope the Wolves still continue to struggle as part of this Western Conference that may be slightly more muddled or confused in terms of where these teams are. And
It's an
that the
opportunity for the Nuggets to start to climb the standings. You can already see like OKC has 3 games on second place, like 6 games into the season, just because nobody else can get their shit together. And that's the same thing that the Nuggets did in their title year. But can we do that, but from number 2? Like, can we be the Grizzlies of that year, but obviously not get injured at the end of the year?
But not the actual Grizzlies.
Just like
That'd be
stay
great.
healthy and like win games consistently and start to build some separation from the rest of the pack. That'd be.
I am not feeling like a 2-seed team right now, but it would be awesome.
But in this West, like, you never know.
You never know, especially with Jokic. And if Jamal figures it out, then I'd be more confident we could do that.
Yeah.
So hopefully Jamal gets back from concussion and we're right back into it.
We are going to be doing our next show after the November 10th Mavs game. So we'll record the day after that and talk about this next stretch of pretty tough games that the Nuggets have every other night. So they're playing the Raptors on Monday, which is probably after this, right after this episode drops. Then they play OKC, then they play the Miami Heat, and then they play the Mavs. This is all on a homestand. Curious to see how they handle each of those teams. OKC is going to be tough, especially if Jamal can't play. Like, I hope he's back by then, but if he isn't, like, low expectations. But they need to start winning more home games. So this stretch will be important for them. And then we're going to do another one after another Mavs game, the November 22nd IST game. So look out for our show after those marquee matchups between Jokic's best friend Luka and the Nuggets.
That'll be interesting to see how they stack up. All right, thanks for listening, listeners. But as we say, many of you who are coming here, over half are not subscribed. So if you just found our show and you like what you hear, consider liking and subscribing because that will help us out a ton. Share, hit the notification bell on YouTube as well. Find us on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. Follow our Instagram and TikTok. It's all under What's in a Game NBA, and our YouTube clip channel. Hopefully we'll come to you next time after some wins, because winning is really fun and losing sucks.